like to welcome everybody back for our second presentation. Will be Mr. Joao Korngold. Mr. Korngold is one of the founders and directors of the Spiritist Group of New York and the Spiritual Alliance for Books. Spiritual Alliance for Books is also a website where you can buy the most modern and up-to-date editions of not only Allan Kardec's Spiritist Codification, the 5 fundamental books of the Spiritist doctrine, but also many other books concerning the spiritual life and life in the spiritual realm. In particular, a series that was dictated by the Spirit Andre Luis, who most people that have studied Spiritism are familiar with him. A series, I believe, of 16 books that were dictated to the medium Chico Xavier, a very, very famous medium in Brazil. And Andre Luis's mission as a spirit was to bring to the material world information on how the spiritual world worked and how it interacted with the physical realm through the eyes of a spirit. And if you read any of his books, they are just chock full of information on the spirit's interaction with our world, as Marcelo was describing and as Joao will also describe. He started studying Spiritism more than 20 years ago and has been one of the directors of the mediumship meeting for the past 10 years. He's also responsible for the study groups at the Spiritist Group of New York that focuses on the basic books of Spiritism and the Andre Luis collection, as we were just discussing. He has been giving lectures on Spiritism in Portuguese and English for the past 5 years. And in his spare time, he is also an engineer and has been working as a banker for the last 20 years. So I'd like to introduce Mr. Joao Korngold. Thank
you. I'm a little tall here, so let's see if this... So, good morning, everybody. Thank you all for being here. Thank you for Glaucio and the organization team of the Spiritist, the 6th Spiritist Conference of Atlanta. The fact that they're doing it for the 6th time, it means it's successful. It continues to grow. We were here a couple of years ago. We were not here last year, but we can see that it's already growing, and it's a success that the Spiritist movement really needs in this country, so we can continue spreading the teachings of Kardec and the words of Jesus. So when I received the title of my lecture today, and then I saw what Marcelo was going to talk, I said, well, someone has to learn this or hear this more than once, right? Because he spoke about the influence of spirits in our lives, and I'm going to talk about the presence of spirits in our daily lives. What's the difference? The difference may be the approach. Marcelo gave a very interesting presentation talking about the influence of the spirits. Some of the questions and answers that he put in his presentation, you are going to see again, but we are going to try to do a different approach, and the questions that you already know the answers, we're going fast, so you don't have to, I'm sure you have no doubts. So let's see if this works. It works. So spirits. What are spirits? How do we define spirits? And the Spirits book tells us, we can say that spirits are the intelligent beings of the creation. And then Kardec asks, can we say that spirits are immaterial? And the spirits answer, how can we define something when you have no terms for the definition? We know that, we learn through Spiritism that in the universe we have God, we have the spirits, and we have matter. So everything that is not God and it's not the spirits, it's matter. Everything else is matter. But we the spirits, we are not matter. We have a physical body, which is matter. We have a spiritual body, which is also matter. We live in the material world. The spiritual world, the spiritual dimension, is also matter. But we, the spirits, are not matter. So, how can we define something? Well, the best definition that they gave us is quintessentialized matter, which is a very long word that doesn't explain much to us. But I think that what we need to know is we, spirits, are not matter. Everything else around us is matter. So, that's the part that you already saw from Marcelo. Do we stop thinking after death? Very quick answer, no. If we keep thinking, do we still think of those we love or hate? And the answer, of course, yes. If we still think. Now, the important thing that we learn from Spiritism is that we don't change anything from the moment that we go back to the spiritual world. The only thing that changes is the physical body we leave behind. Besides that, we continue to be exactly the same. So if I go back to the spiritual world today, all my affections and disaffections are going to continue to be exactly the same as they are today. Now, of course, you can have the shock of going back to the spiritual world and the rethinking of everything because you went back there, but essentially we continue to be exactly the same. So, if we can be anywhere, can a spirit be next to us? And again, the answer, straightforward, yes. Well, so if they are around us, can they communicate with us? Again, yes. So, if they can communicate with us, do they influence our thoughts and actions? Marcelo answered, so the answer is yes, and it is greater than we suppose. So, how this interaction works? There is the spiritual plane and there is the physical plane. And both planes are continuous. Okay, one thing that is very difficult for us to understand as we start studying the spiritual world and the physical world is that both the spiritual world and the physical world are in the same place, if we can say so. So, Marcelo said that we are here incarnated spirits, and there are the same number or probably a little more of discarnate spirits. I will disagree with you. I think there are many more discarnate spirits here taking this opportunity of studying and learning with us. But it's not that there is a division and there is the spiritual plane and the physical plane. It's all together. It's only one thing. It's just different dimensions. What's the difference? Is a vibrational barrier that exists between the physical plane and the spiritual plane. And this vibrational barrier is what makes it more difficult for us to communicate with the other side. On the other hand, if we couldn't see the distinction in between the spiritual world and the physical world, I'm sure we will all go crazy here, because if we cannot understand where you are in the physical or the spiritual world, it becomes a lot more complicated to live our lives. And we have a few examples of people that have this open mediumship and the ability to see the spiritual world pretty much as they see the physical world, and it makes their life very, very difficult. For those that saw the movie A Beautiful Mind, that brilliant mathematician, that I forgot his name, he had this ability, which was, in his case, a disease also, to see the spirits in the spiritual world, and he found a way later in his life to differentiate the spiritual world and the physical world, to be able to lead almost normal life, but you remember how hard things were for him when he couldn't distinguish what was reality in the physical life and what was the spiritual life. Now, how can we overcome this vibrational barrier? There are ways of overcoming it. There are ways for us to communicate with the spiritual world. And one of the simple ways that we can do it, and we do every night, is through our sleep. At that time, we leave our physical body and we go back to the spiritual world, and we interact with the spiritual world. So when we are sleeping, we have the opportunity of seeing those that crossed over. We have the opportunity of receiving instructions from our guardian angel, and we have the opportunity of learning something. For those that read the books from André Luiz, all the books from André Luiz, when he starts in the first chapter of the book, generally he listens to a lecture by an evolved spirit before he goes on his mission, on his work. And in those lectures, there is always a mix of discarnate spirits and spirits that are sleeping, are on their sleep state and went there to watch their lectures. Now, how can we go to better places when we go to sleep? Because when we sleep, our mind takes us where our vibration level connects. So if we want to go to better, higher spheres during our sleep, is how we live our daily lives, how we prepare, how we pray before sleeping, how we think good mental thoughts that will give us the possibility of reaching better places in the spiritual world. Of course, not everything, and I'm not going to enter a lot into dreams here, not everything that we remember from our dreams are passages from the spiritual world. Some of our dreams are our recollections, confused recollections of our daily lives. Normally what the spirits tell us, that when we dream those confusing things that are happening, a lot of things at the same time, these are our own mind, our own brain, showing us things that happen in our daily lives. When we have things that make more sense, that are more organized, that are more, even if we cannot remember clearly, but they make more sense, these are our time in the spiritual plane. So not everything we dream comes from the spiritual plane. It's important to make this distinction. So Marcelo mentioned Paul of Tarsus. In the book Paul and Stephen, Paul, during his sleep, in one of the passages, he meets Stephen, who was his guide, spiritual guide through his journey spreading Christianity. And this shows him how he meets, during his sleep, he meets Stephen and receives instruction on how to continue his journey, as he was facing many struggles that was spreading Christianity at that time. That it is a wonderful book, and for those that haven't read it, I truly recommend Paul and Stephen. You can find it at ATC, right? So the most common way that we're interacting with the spiritual world is through our thoughts. The spirits see everything we do. Yes, they see everything we do. We are surrounded by them. But let me try to make a distinction that I always try to do at our study groups in New York. For all those of you who know New York, you know 5th Avenue, right? You walk through 5th Avenue, there are 1,000 people walking around you. Do you walk one block, and after you finish that block, think how many conversations you heard and you paid attention? Probably none, because they are just passing by. And spirits are pretty much like this. They are around us, but they are not really interested with what we are thinking unless there is some special connection. So it's not that they are 10 spirits walking around you and following you everywhere and looking at everything you are doing. No, they live their own lives, they have their own business, they take care of their own things. Now, we connect with them when we need the connection, when there is some attraction, some mental vibration that connects with us. Besides that, they are just around us like we are around a bunch of people that we really, when you are walking in an airport, you're not paying attention to those around you. Maybe one or two people call your attention, but most people, they don't call your attention. That's exactly how it works with the spiritual world. The spirits are around us, but they're not paying attention to us unless there is something important happening that they need to pay attention. So I didn't want to jump that. So they can know our most secret thoughts. Yes, they can, but only if it matters. Okay, that's the important thing. We cannot, it's. I always remember that story of the lady that said that when she learned about Spiritism and that the spirits are all around us, she didn't want to shower anymore because she didn't want to undress herself because there are spirits around us all the time. They're not paying attention. They don't care. And our privacy is preserved also if we maintain our good mental thoughts. And they are around us, especially our guardian angels and our protecting spirits, especially to help us in moments of affliction. And that's important. We are never alone. They're always there to help us. So we have our own thoughts and others that are suggested to us, like Marcelo covered that. And it's always a combination, but and like he said, we shouldn't pay much attention to that. We should make decisions according to our own free will, according to our own thoughts, because in the end, the spirits can influence our thoughts, but the responsibility is ours. If you scream at your son and daughter, you cannot blame the spirits because the spirits were influencing you. It's your own decision. Every action that we take is our own decision. We can listen to them, we can follow their advice, but we have our free will and we are responsible for our actions and responsible for the consequences of our actions. So those thoughts that come to us first generally are our thoughts, and then the thoughts that come from the spirits when we are thinking about something, and then we have our first thought, and then we have a second thought that maybe it's opposing to the first. The second is most likely coming from the spiritual world. Doesn't mean that if it comes from the spiritual world we have to listen, because how can we guarantee that the spirit trying to influence us is a evolved spirit? Most likely we are associating with those that are the same level as us. So we listen to advice from friends, incarnated friends. Spirits that are around us are most likely at the same level. So we listen to them if we want, and we should make our own decisions, our own wise decisions if possible. And then always remember that good spirits only give inspirational thoughts. If some thought come to you, do this, do that, that never comes from our more evolved spirits. More evolved spirits, they only want to give advice to us, inspirational advice, wants to show us the path that we should follow by our own free will. They never impose any decision because they know that we have to make our own decisions. So if we are hearing instructions, detailed instructions of what to do, we can be sure that it doesn't come from more evolved spirits. The question is up there. Why do the spirits wants to make us suffer. It's not that they want to make us suffer. It's that, you know, when you have a group of people and they are all miserable, and then someone there starts to feel happy and starts to follow a different path, and the group doesn't want them to leave them. And I love this word, this phrase that we have here, that misery loves company. It's the same thing in the spiritual world. They don't want us to evolve. Sometimes it's not personal. It's just that they don't want us to be happy because they are not happy. They're suffering. They don't want others to be happy. They want everybody to suffer with them so they don't feel alone suffering. When you suffer alone, it's much more difficult. When you suffer in group, it gives some consolation. So they want to suffer. They want us to suffer with them. We don't need to do that. We need to find our own path of happiness. And we need to disconnect from these spirits that are trying to drag us down on our daily lives. And the fact that they're making us suffer, it doesn't lessen their sufferings. They are just envy of seeing happier beings. Because they cannot find a way of being happy, they want everybody around them to be unhappy. So, why they exist, why they are around us, and why they are allowed to communicate with us? Well, it's not that they are allowed, it's we open ourselves to them. We allow them to be next to us. You imagine a gang that we have, unfortunately, in these streets, and nobody's forced to join a gang. You join a gang because you want to. Even those, sometimes it's very difficult in some neighborhoods, and young kids feel compelled to join the gangs because otherwise they have no way out. But they are not. There is always a way out. So the bad spirits are around us, but if we don't allow them to connect with us, they won't. They won't find us. The vibration at different levels won't allow them to find us. We attract them. So when we have bad thoughts, when we want to persecute someone else, when we want our little revenges, or we want to talk bad about, especially about those members of our family that we cannot stand, we all have a lot of spirits that will be right next to us, inciting us and encouraging us to do things that we are not supposed to do. And we see in this drawing, which is from the book In the Realms of Mediumship, that you have this writer that is thinking of writing a letter accusing a young lady, and doing false accusations against her. And he's in a bar, he's drinking, and you see the spirit that attaches to him, and this spirit doesn't even know the writer. He knows the young girl, and he wants him to cause harm to the young girl because he's an obsessor to her. But he's attracting the spirit. Maybe the spirit will enjoy his company and will stay around. So that's the connections we make when we have these inferior thoughts, when we have these when we're doing these inferior actions. Is it always personal? No. It's sometimes personal, sometimes not. So when you go to a bar to have a drink, you will attract a lot of spirits that we want to drink with you. It's not personal. They don't even know you. But the alcohol that exhalates from your body is what feeds the spirits that used to drink when they were incarnate and still miss drinking. So they are going to attach themselves to us when we are doing these inferior actions, and sometimes it's personal, and the times that are personal, these are the most difficult ones to get rid of. If they have something personal, they will try to influence us, because the spirits that have nothing personal, the moment you stop drinking, they just move away. They will look for the next guy who is drinking. They have nothing personal with you. But those that have it, that are personal, these are the ones that will stay around you, trying to force you to go back to the bar and start drinking again. So, for those, how can we disconnect from those? Is through elevated thoughts, through prayers, and just being here today, we are working on that. Just making an effort. By making an effort, our protecting spirits that are always around us, our guardian angel, will make sure that these spirits that are trying to disturb our lives, that are trying to prevent us to walk on the right path, are going to be removed from our daily lives as long as we want them and we keep them away with our thoughts. So sometimes when you go back to the spirit life, the transformation makes us change our thoughts, make us understand that what happened here during our incarnation was not that important, and we are able to let it go. But many times we'll carry our hatred, we carry our desires of vengeance, and we take that with us to the spiritual world, and we will try to persecute and continue chasing those that cause us harm. So that's how we attract and spirits, and we as spirits connect to others. Now, what about the haunted places? Spirits many times are attached to material things, and this is something that we see that is easier for us to understand, because we've seen movies, we heard stories about haunted places, places that appear to be taken by spirits. And in reality, the spirits that cannot forget or detach themselves from places, they can stay around. It is not, one thing it's important, it's not a fully conscious decision of the spirit. It's an attraction that the spirit doesn't know how to control and doesn't know how to change. So, because it's the only thing that they know, they stay there. And when they stay there, sometimes in this state of confusion, not being fully aware that they are in a different dimension, because many spirits go back to the spiritual world and do not understand that they are back in the spiritual world, they stay in these places and they think these places are theirs. So they want to expel any intruders to this place. So they try to, and they find ways, because they are very material, still very materialized, they can play with physical manifestations. They learn how to make noises, they learn how to make all these scary things that we see in horror movies. These are spirits that are stuck to those places. And unfortunately for our friends, the ghost hunters, it's not going there with machines and listening to them that we're going to help them move away, because I always look at those programs and I say, okay, they go there, they find there is a spirit there. Now what? They don't know what to do with it. If the spirit materializes in front of them and start talking to them, they don't know what to say. They don't know how to tell these spirits, just telling them to move away. You don't go to someone's house and tell them, leave your house, and they will leave. They think it's their house. Why they will leave the house? It has to be something more. So, in Spiritism, we learn how to deal with those spirits. We learn that we have to talk to them. We have to explain, and they have to understand about their situation, that there is something else, that they have to move on. And this is very important, they are not evil spirits, they are just lost. They don't know where they are. And some of them are just having fun of them there, right? Because there are those spirits that are stuck there, and those that have nothing else better to do. So they just stay around having fun at people. When they start seeing the effect that it has on people, it's fun, right? Think about young kids that like to make fun of others and scare others. If they see that what they are doing is is making an effect, they will do even more. So these spirits, if they see that what they're doing is causing others to be scared, they will do even more. So we're not going to get rid of them just going there with machines, or the only way is really to show them that there is something else, that it is another way, and that they have changed. They are back in the spiritual world and they have to move on. And then we have the poltergeist effect, which is also a spiritual effect. It's a playing spirit, a noisy spirit, right? It's a common denomination which was born out of the observation of the phenomena. It comes from, it's a German word that means playing spirit, massy spirit. They use the ectoplasm, which is this fluid that we all have, but some mediums have more than others. With it, they can move objects, they can produce noises, can produce fire, and a port, which means some objects are brought from one place to another. These are all very well explained in the medium's book. It's nothing, there is no miracles, there is no phenomena, it's just the action of spirits over matter. And there is really nothing that we should be afraid of. It's just spirits that are trying to call our attention, or to scare us, to prevent us from going to what they think is their places. The Spiritist movement started exactly like that. The Spiritualist movement started with the Fox Sister. It was an American movement called Modern Spiritualism. In 1848, in Hydesville, the Fox Sisters, which were mediums, started hearing noises. There was a spirit that was stuck in their house that started communicating with them. And these sisters, through the communications from this spirit, started the whole spiritualist movement. Then it moved to Europe and gave origin to all these table-turning events that attracted the attention of many. And finally Kardec, very reluctant in the beginning, decided to go and attend one of the sessions. And at this session, he, being an educator and a very rational man, immediately thought that a table cannot communicate. There is no, unless someone proved me that there is an intelligence inside the table, it has to be another explanation for the table giving a communication. And that's how he started being interested, and he started studying about it. And at first, he was studying it for his own personal understanding. He had no plan or idea that he was going to create a movement, publish books or anything. He was just curious to understand, as a rational man, how can a table give communication? A table cannot give communication, so something else. And from there, he starts learning and receiving answers from the spirits, and he created this wonderful book, the Spirit's book. He started formulating the questions and receiving answers from spirits all around the world, and compiling these answers and producing all this literature that serve as a basis for our studies of Spiritism. Of course, in Hollywood, they created some very good movies that explain very well how the spiritual world and interaction with the physical world works. And two of the best movies in terms of explaining how this works, how our interaction with the spiritual world works, is Ghost and The Others. The Others, for those who haven't seen it, someone has not seen The Others here? Everybody saw it, okay? No, you haven't? So, for those that have not seen the movie, you have to see it. It explains so well the interaction of the spiritual world and the physical world. And I'm not going to say anything else, because you have to see the movie. Yeah, and then you have to see it once, and then in the end you say, wow, and then you have to see it again. Because on the second time, you understand everything that is happening that you didn't know on the first time. So these two movies are highly recommended in terms of Hollywood productions of movies that talk about the spiritual world and explain to us how the spiritual world works. And this is what happens on the other side. There are haunted places, yes. Venice, Italy is a city that is swarmed with spirits. There is a lot of, it's considered the most haunted city in the world. All these old buildings, old constructions, everything that happened in Venice throughout the centuries, many spirits are still around there, and many spirits live in those old buildings, and that's where you find many of those cases of haunted houses, and you see spirits in the shadow. You know, those that have the ability to see spirits. Sometimes you go with those to Venice, and they will feel it. They will feel the energy. Jussara, my wife, who's a medium, when we go to Venice, you know, we walk around, and sometimes she's looking at the buildings, and she has this mediumship ability of seeing, or most than seeing, feeling the energy of the places. And you know, and it's not a scary thing. It's just you know, a feeling of how many spirits are still stuck in those places and attached to those mansions. Remember, we are eternal souls. So if a spirit is stuck to a building for 300 years, it means nothing in terms of eternity. It's just a step towards our continued journey towards perfection. Sometimes we get stuck for years, decades, centuries, to places, to people, but it will end. Eventually we'll find our way out, and we'll continue our evolution. That's a good one, right? Exorcism is an effective mean. We've been hearing about exorcism for many years. The movie The Exorcism actually is an interesting movie, not very, very true, but it's a scary one. But the problem with exorcism is that you just expel the spirit that is influencing the incarnate human being. And when you expel the spirit, you are doing nothing to educate the spirit. So at the first opportunity that this spirit has, it will come back. because he has learned nothing. The effective way is to treat both the obsessed and the obsessor. This is just a case of obsession, exorcism. Exorcism is used by the church to expel evil spirits. In Spiritism, we just call obsessor. And between an obsessor and obsessed, both have their responsibility. Nobody becomes obsessed if they are not making the connection to obsessor, and if they don't have the connection with the obsessor. So exorcism doesn't solve the problem, which is dealing with both the spirit and the incarnate. Only when we deal with both is that we can separate them and allow them to continue their own journeys. So how do we do that? On the incarnate being, surrounding ourselves with good energy, we block the negative energy that can harm us. So we can neutralize the influence of evil spirits by thoughts, by doing good, by acting. Normally, when we are not doing much, when we are idle, is when we tend to start having bad thoughts, when we start having inferior thoughts. When we put ourselves into action, when we work to help others, we work for the good of others, we have no time to have inferior thoughts, and we won't risk attracting any inferior spirits around us. But we always should pray for them, because they are our brothers and sisters in need of help and assistance. So if we pray for them and we ask for them to be helped also, they will receive the assistance they need. Even if they cannot immediately receive the assistance, no prayer is lost. All prayers will be kept for when they are necessary and useful. So the Spirit's book tells us, in all cases, if you know how to place yourselves above their schemes, they will seize them upon seeing that they gain nothing from them. If you see that they cannot influence you, they try and they try and they try, at least they'll get curious. Why cannot I not harm them? Why cannot I not influence them? And maybe this questioning will allow them to look for their own answers, to look for their own way, and will help them move on. We all have guardian angels. We all have spiritual friends. We all have a protecting spirit. We can call it guardian angel. Each one of us have our own particular protecting spirit, which is not always the same throughout our incarnations. Maybe it changes, but it follows us during a series of incarnations normally. And their mission is to guide us. It's like parents to our children. It's to guide us, to help us, to inspire us to move in the right direction. The decision to listen to them or not is our own decision. Do they abandon us? Well, they never abandon us. But if they see that we are not listening to them, they have their own life to live. They have their own work. They are always ready to help us. But if we don't want to listen to them, they are going to wait for a better opportunity. They will be ready to help us when we need, but they will not be around us if we don't want to listen to them. And eventually we won't need it, but we are far from there, and we won't even discuss that. When we reach perfection, we don't need a guardian angel, but we're a long way. Why they are not making themselves more visible and more present? Because we have to do our own work. We are here to evolve by ourselves. We have all the help and assistance we need, but it's our job to evolve. So if they were here telling us what to do, we have no merit, and if we have no merit, it's not our own advancement. It's their advancement, so we're not going anywhere. So they are here to help and assist us. And remember, we always, besides our guardian angels, we have our loved ones that are always there to help us. You know, our grandparents, our great-grandparents, our parents, our uncles, all those that left before us, all those that can help and assist us will be around us if we need them. Also, cities, places, countries, they all have protector spirits. We can start by our own world. Jesus is our guardian angel of the planet Earth, is our director and responsible for the planet Earth since its creation. But each place has its guardian angel. I know that the spirit responsible for France is St. Louis. For the US, I'm still trying to find, but I imagine that between Abraham Lincoln, Benjamin Franklin, you have a lot of spirits, more evolved spirits that came through this land and that are responsible for this country to move forward. And also, the spirits, they cannot prevent things happening to us, but they can give us advice on how to avoid accidents. This picture is from an accident. It was taken right after the accident. There were 4 people in this car. No one was injured. And someone took the picture right after the accident, and there is this light around the car. You know, it's a protecting spirit. You make your own deductions. And finally, should we thank our protector spirits? Always. We should thank God above all, because without God's permission, we wouldn't be here. But we should also thank always our protecting spirits, our guardian angels, and remember not to thank them only when something good happens to us, but always during our life, because they are here to help us. They are always present in our lives. We are the ones that sometimes close our doors to them, do not allow them to enter in our lives. So if we allow them to be part of our lives, if we allow them to help us, they will be there to help us at all times. Thank you very much.